and thanks for tuning back in to Off the Roll podcast by STEK-USA. This is episode 11, Why Tint and Why STEK. We have with us today Bernice Berry, and Bernice is owner of Pure Luxury Tint down in Arizona, and she is very, very well versed in all things window film, and she's becoming more and more comfortable with STEK's window film as well. So we wanted to have her join us for this episode to really educate you guys on what is window tint, why are some folks looking for it, what are some changes that we've seen in the industry over the last decade or so, and then with that, really what is the kind of direction that STEK's going with our window film, and why in particular we're talking to Pure Luxury right now. So Bernice, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. For those listeners that are tuning in that aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And to keep it simple, I know there's tons of history in the industry, but how long ago did you dive in and start Pure Luxury Tint? Is that where you started in this industry?
Well, I've changed the name several times. Obviously, we fail every time we start a business, and I think I can count 4 times of failure. And now I'm here, and I've been actually tinting for over 32 years.
Awesome. And I imagine over those 32 years, you've seen quite a bit of changes. When you first started, was it on your own accord? You went out and this was something you wanted to do, or how did you kind of get that first introduction to window tint?
I never had any desire to do any window tinting. My goal was to be one of the best detailers in the United States and one of the first male detailers in the United States. I'm sure there are other women who have been doing it longer than I have. I wish I could meet them, but hopefully I will soon. But this guy kept coming by. His name was Frank Martinez in San Antonio. And he said, "You need to be tinting." And I'm like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "No, you really need to be tinting." And I'm like, "I'm good. I'm detailing." Mm-hmm. So one time he says, "Well, I'm going to charge you $50 for each car that I tint in front of you so you can learn." I was like, So I said, okay, all right. So I paid him $50 and I saw him tint one car. And that was pretty exciting. I was like, oh, it looks a lot easier than the detailing that I do.
Mm-hmm. Crawling under the seats, so getting Cheerios.
Yeah, exactly. And all dirty and stinky and nasty cars sometimes. Mm-hmm. So he says, "You want to see me tint another car for another $50? I said, no, I'm going to go buy some film and see if I can figure this out. So I tinted my 1996 Mustang 3 times, and it came out horrible. And I kept doing it over and over. I think about the 15th time, it came out really nice. And I decided, what if I could make extra money and double my income? So I called friends, family, neighbors. "Let me tint your car. I'm not the best, but I'm pretty good, and we'll start with that, and I'll call you back when I get better, and we do any windows that don't look good."
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's all that craziness.
The rest is history. Wow. That is really, really cool. And I think your approach to that was brilliant. And, that's something that we actually recommend for a lot of our students now, but here you are all the way back in 96, offering this too of it's not going to be perfect, but help me help you, and let's work together to get you something that you want in your car, get me the practice that I want, and we'll just have this open conversation about the quality, and hey, I'm available to improve upon that as my skills improve as well. So I think that's really, really good, and that probably makes people happy so they aren't expecting perfection off the first tint job that you ever did. You're like, no, I'm still learning. Let's, approach that with a learning light. Awesome. Well, I think you had a really humbling point too about, the businesses that you've started oftentimes struggle early on and initially. And so what did that look like over these last, few decades, if you will, in terms of, okay, you're wanting to become the best detailer, you're introducing window tint a little bit. What were those major milestones that had you kind of create a new business and pivot from what you were doing previously?
I think it was just the hard work involved. In the sun, I didn't have a shop. I was sweaty. I was dirty, nasty. It was just gross. So then I would move over to corporate America, or I would try to do corporate America and go to school. And it just felt good to be clean for a little while. But I felt deep inside I wasn't happy. My passion wasn't there. I love learning. I love experimenting with new stuff. But with window tinting, every single time it was something new, a new learning curve, a new car, a new shape of a window, a new challenge. And that's what I was excited about.
Awesome. Awesome. What do you think was one of the biggest challenges between going from detailing and being willing to take that risk into trying a new service? Obviously, you saw, well, with a lot of practice, I can get a little bit better. But what was like that deciding factor where, was it, I guess, success once you started introducing it to that friends and family? You got good feedback? Or what was that learning curve like? Was it steeper than that? Or was it not as easy?
That's a tough one, Michael. It wasn't really a learning curve. It was more like I wanted to change my lifestyle. I was living an okay life, still much better than what I came from, but I wanted more. And it wasn't about, oh, I want to be a millionaire, because that's never been my desire. My desire is always like, I want to pay my bills on time. I want to see how much I'm capable of making through my passion and through my skills. So I always try to grow. And I always give myself a 30% growth space there. And at that time, I needed to leave the city. I was in a very bad, horrible domestic violence situation. So I said, well, if I learn how to tint, I could reward myself and leave the city and move somewhere else. So I was making about $1,000 a week. I didn't know that that was a lot of money. I never valued money. It was just paper. My family never taught us how to do that. So I thought, well, what if I could make $2,000? And it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it, Michael. It wasn't about the money. It was more like just numbers. I just wanted bigger numbers. So I thought, if I could make $2,000, then I can earn to leave the city. So we moved from San Antonio to Austin. I went back to corporate America, and I still detailed and tinted on the side. But it just so seemed that my side gig was always making more money than working for corporate America. So once I got rested enough, and it's kind of a mental mindset thing, because corporate America is mental, but it's not challenging. Window tint and detailing, it's mental, it's challenging, it's physically challenging. You're always learning something, and you can make a lot more money too. So I thought, okay, so I live in Austin. It was like the place to be back then. And I bought a house right next to, I can't remember the name of the street, but the Delionaires moved in. A whole 3-4 blocks of Dell opened up. I thought, what if I could sell my house and make more money? So I sold the house, and within 3 months, I made $40,000. So I'd been gone a few years, and I thought I might move back to San Antonio. It started up again. I lived there for 2 years, then I moved out to Arizona. I just closed my eyes and said, okay, we're moving to Arizona. Packed up in 3 days, and we left. It's the craziest thing I ever did in my life, but it's the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've been really ambitious in terms of chasing the opportunities and the opportunities that you want to achieve for yourself, and not because someone else told you this is what you need to do, or this is, you need money and this is the way to make money. You found this as something that was more involving holistically for you, mentally, physically, but also more rewarding because of that challenge. And you realize that, hey, the hard work I put in is going to be the reward that I get out. And all of a sudden that, $1,000 a week can be $2,000 if you want to put in that work. And obviously it takes some time and experience to get there. It's not as easy as just being willing to work. But that being said, being as aggressive as you have been about those opportunities, and then not afraid to pivot where you need to, I think is hugely helpful for obviously just where you're at now. I mean, it's worked out for the better. You're, very well known in this industry. We're very glad to be working with you. And, you have an influence on a lot of different people's lives. And so that actually kind of brings me to the next point I was curious about. That's about kind of training and educating other people. You mentioned that learning for yourself has always been really, really important. And to tie things together here, for those folks tuning in that don't know, Pure Luxury is our really premier tint install training facility that we recommend to any of our students or any of our existing installers that want to brush up their tint skills or learn tint for the first time, we're sending a lot of those folks down to Bernice because you work great with people. The education that you're giving them has been enough to support them and allow them to go be successful in their own businesses. And so how did you learn that you enjoy teaching just as much as you enjoy learning? And I imagine that relationship is obviously pretty important about where Pure Luxury is as a business today.
Well, I worked for another couple manufacturers, and as I traveled through each of these shops, I always look for cleanliness. Excuse me, because I know how important it is to clean, not just the windows, but your shop as well. I looked at the work, how much dirt is in the work, and how are you dressed. So there was a lot of things that I was looking at as I visited these shops to see how can I improve if I ever go back out into the field. And I learned a lot on the other side where you sit today and where I sit today. So I combined the two, and I thought, what if I could teach the young people what I've learned, because a lot of the really good tinters are my age. And so we're having a small drop on window tint installers.
Yeah, skilled labor, right? It's in constant demand in this industry across the board, really.
Right. Especially here, it's super hot. And if you can tint, you can make some really good money.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's a really good question, too, for those car owners that might be tuning in. Why tint? And I think that's an important question to acknowledge in case anyone listening is like, well, I don't have tint in my car, or I did on my last car and I don't for this vehicle. For yourself, I think you just touched on it. What are the most popular reasons folks are getting tint, or what are the most common reasons that they're coming in and requesting that service that you've seen? And has that changed over the last 10 years, or has it been, pretty consistent?
It was pretty consistent for a while until cancer came through. But the things that have remained the same are heat rejection, reduce the maintenance on your AC so you don't have to use it on high all the time, the interior of your car to make it last longer. People who have skin cancer has been very important here lately, because here in Arizona, skin cancer has gone up as it becomes hotter every year. And a lot of the skin doctors, well, my cancer patients, I try to take really good care of them by giving them a large discount. But those would be the main reasons, especially on a resale value, keeping the interior nice and beautiful as it was original when you first bought the vehicle through window tint. The AC, you won't have to fix your AC as often. Those sort of things.
Absolutely. And honestly, just to back up, like UV damage from the sun is kind of what the window tint is defending against. And that UV damage is what's going to be ages not only your skin, or can cause that skin cancer, worst case.
Everything,
Exactly. It cracks the plastics, your dashboards. And that's also where, the infrared heat is coming from, obviously, is just the sunshine. And so there's varying levels depending on the type of film that you get. You'll get, more or less heat rejection. Do you find that folks coming in for window tint these days are well educated on the selection of performance levels between, say, like a dyed, metallized, carbon into like ceramic? Do they know what they're looking for yet?
No. I'm going to say about 60% of the clients always want dark because they think it's better. But when I re-educate them and let them know the two common films, which are metal and a nano ceramic. One of them, because the color is going to last for aesthetics, and the ceramic obviously rejects tons, like between 80 and 90% solar and infrared heat, as opposed to the 40 to 50% solar heat.
Yeah. So just kind of walking them through, what are you looking for in this window film? Do you want just that privacy, the look, the darkness, or do you actually want the heat rejection performance aspect of that?
Correct.
Of course. Cool. And for you folks, obviously having as much sunshine as you do, the laws are a little bit different. Do you find that most folks are going towards the ceramic for having the IR once they know that, it doesn't have to be super dark, we can also go lighter? And I'm curious about this too. Is there a demographic that tends to go towards like darker films versus lighter? And you mentioned, older versus younger folks. Is that maybe the trend that you see there as well?
It's older versus younger. I don't really see, I mean, it's the same demographics across the board, but older because they can't see back at night when they put the really dark film. Or if they buy a car with really dark film on the back, they'll have us change it to a lighter film. And then we educate them on the ceramic, that it can be super light and still reject and feel as cool as the dark films. And that's when they're excited until I give them the price.
Good education. Cool. And of the high volume tint clients that you've gotten to help, are there any questions that you're like, man, no one's asking, but they always should? Or is that there like a point of education that you always have to share because they're not asking about it to begin with?
Well, a lot of clients come in and say, well, how much UV does it reject? They're not asking me the important stuff like how much heat. Is it just solar heat or is it IR heat also? It's always UV. And I say UV is important, but anything sold in the United States has to be 99% UV rejection. That is just a requirement to sell here. So you don't have to worry about any of the films not having any UV protection. You want to ask about the solar and the infrared.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a car owner looking up tint, researching tint, you'll find these specifications charts, and they are a little daunting. Like, there's a lot of different numbers, there's a lot of acronyms on there, and you're like, oh, geez, what's this TSER, and is that important? And so maybe the easiest number to look at is just that UV. But as the car owner, I really do encourage you to go slow, take your time to try to understand those numbers that you're looking at. And if you're a number person, that's how you're making your decision, at least. To your point, you are the expert source. That shop owner, if you're in Arizona, call Bernice. She'll be happy to walk you through, what are you actually getting, explain what those numbers mean. But it is important to make an educated decision, I think, because it is something that will impact you every time you drive your car, whether you realize it or not. And to your point, when you resell it, you might get more or less in return because of the window tint that you chose.
Well, I always explain to them, because I have a piece of dyed film also, and I say, I want you to feel the quality between the ceramic and this dyed film. And then I have a couple other pieces of film, and I said, let's go outside. Let's look up to the sun and put this film in front of your face, and you tell me which feeling do you prefer in your car.
It kind of sells itself.
So kind of dumb it down. Yeah, dumb it down a little bit so that they understand, because I know that the lingo I'm going to use, they may not understand.
Yeah. And I don't even know that it would be dumbing it down as much as like, oh, you're not a tint geek. Well, let me just explain it in layman's terms, right? Of like more heat, less heat. And I think to your point, like that tangible example is so influential in making an educated decision. If you can, get them in your shop so that you can show them the feeling that they get in the different material and also behind that material in terms of that performance and rejection. So
correct.
That's hugely helpful. Well, very cool. As I touched on a little bit earlier, you're offering training now. And I'm curious, where does that balance kind of fall for Pure Luxury and your efforts in between retail and training? Are you still largely focused on retail and the training fits in, or do you find a larger percent of your time being focused on training and educating others?
That's funny you asked that, Michael. I keep going back and forth, but I feel that my passion is more in training lately. And trying to convert my shop into that excites me, but I know that I don't have the space. So we're trying to find a larger space, which is very scary because I've been here, 10 years now? And bigger means more money. So if I'm going to, So if I'm going to jump, you jump 100%. You jump off the cliff. You don't put your toe in the water because, no, that's not what this is about.
That's how you get crinkly toes.
But I have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, if I put my toes in the water, I'm going to think about it and be like, oh, hem and haw too much. Or if I just look at the cliff, look down, just take a deep breath and jump. Sometimes you just got to do that.
Yeah, makes a bigger splash when you do that.
I like how you put that. That's awesome.
As far as, tint training, this is something that, we see a lot of interest and demand for, and we hope to really bridge that gap to send anyone who's looking for more STEK tint experience out to you. And I know that you've been working with STEK recently as well. And I'm curious if you're comfortable speaking towards maybe just a few of those like qualities or attributes of the film that you have found really enjoyable to work with. And then also curious about your kind of training structure, if you're open to sharing to our listeners a little bit about what they might expect.
Okay, so I really like the products. I started off with Action. You guys sent me a box, and I like the feel of it. I feel that it's hard to explain verbally, but I can feel when a film has quality raw materials in it. Action is a very good starting product for people who are starting out to window tint. Smart, I was a little bit more excited about. I felt the heat rejection a little bit more. And I'm like, oh, but I need something to compare what I'm currently using. And then you guys came out with NEX. I was sold. I mean, it's an amazing product. The adhesive doesn't smell very strong, which I like. So in my mind, it's something clean, not organic, but clean. I recently found out, because I was not happy that when I heat shrink and go to the next window, the heat shrink, the first window's falling off. But I didn't realize, but I think one of the owners, John, says that it's antimicrobial. Oh my gosh, who else is doing that? Nobody that I know of, but I know a lot of people have kids, and kids love to touch glass and window tint. But the antimicrobial, being in this COVID season, which I hate talking about it, but that was amazing and brilliant coming from you guys. And that helped me pivot and say, okay, these guys are paying attention. This is super, super amazing. The research and development and including that in your films. Wow. I like that.
It's been fun to sit on this side of the desk, if you will, and see the innovation that is coming out. And, innovation is challenging. It's not always successful the first time you bring something out. But if you listen to the needs and demands of the market and kind of those trends, and sometimes there's buzzwords and there's kind of just a lot of fluff and, smoke and mirrors around it. But other time there's these buzzwords like graphene, for example, that is in the NEX that does have some really good use to it. But it's important as a manufacturer to gain that education first, be the expert source of knowledge, and then you can start kind of pushing that out. And so to your point, yeah, the technology for these antimicrobial films is out there. It's been out. We actually have antimicrobial PPF. So if you want, you can do, restaurants and, kitchen spaces and whatnot.
Yes.
But it's a no-brainer because your kids are going to, yeah, exactly, daycares. But if your kids, sneeze in the back seat and they're dragging their nose against the, glass and all that kind of stuff, it is just baking in bacteria and other germs. So yeah, two birds, one stone. Right. I think the innovation in that product, from the antimicrobial properties as well as like the graphene, which is unique to that NEX, which just helps the infrared heat rejection be a lot more efficient, if you will. Shows that, we are on the cutting edge. And even though we're newer to the window film industry that's been here for, going on maybe 6 decades, we are going to be just as competitive in the space, and we have the technology and the engineers to allow us to do so. So we're thankful to have someone with your experience giving us that feedback and, believing in the product, of course. Now, the other part of that question I just touched on, training. What would be the best expectation for someone interested in their training class? What are they looking for? Are there multiple different kind of classes you offer based on experience? Or is it kind of the same, here's our 3-day course and here's a curriculum for that each time? What can they kind of expect for students looking for training from you?
I've been focusing on beginners because there's a lot of intermediate and advanced classes. So I thought, what about the beginners? Who's going to help them? But at any shop you go apply at, they want between 1 and 3 years of experience. So right there, I found an opportunity and a niche. And I'm probably giving away everything, but who cares? But it's okay. So I wanted to help them because I know that even though Frank was there, I didn't have the money. So I do try to yes, my prices are high, but I do try to work with every single student according to their personal situation. I want everybody to learn. And if they can't get that 1-year experience, at least I want to try to be there for them. And so I always leave my phone line, my Facebook, my FaceTime available for these students. As a matter of fact, we have a student in the shop right now who I had over the weekend, and he's been struggling quite a bit. So I said, just come back, bring the car, let's do this together. So right now my employees are helping him install a back glass. And I want to keep my shop open. So now, luckily, we're slow today. Normally we're not, but today we are. And it just kind of worked out nicely. I want to be able to do that for all my students. Obviously, not all of them live here. But if they have family here, it's like, hey, I'm going to travel. I'm going to do my cousin's car. So, yeah, bring your cousin's car. Let's get it done. I'll help you do it. And sometimes I even stay after class so that they can do not just their personal car or a family member's car. I want to make sure that they get it. I want to know that when they leave my class, they can at least do one window and that it looks excellent. Because if I can add that self-confidence to them, I know already that if they put their mind to it, they're going to get this. They can't get it at all, Michael. I try to spend extra time in talking to them. I think people get scared when mom is mad. So I end up with this whole mother figure thing. And I'm like, you need to get this. Who's going to take care of your kids when you can't tint your cars? And just kind of get after them like a mother just to get them out of their head. And I always remind them, if you're angry, if you're hurt, and you've got a lot on your mind, or you're upset with the girlfriend or the boyfriend, you can't tint. After 32 years, I can't do it if I'm too emotional. So you have to rise above yourself, remove those emotions, and get it done.
Wow.
Make sure it's clean.
Yeah, no, that's up to the excellent standard. I think that's a really phenomenal goal to have. Like, let's get you feeling good about you completing this window at an excellent level. Mm-hmm. And then you can take that confidence and counter your failures that you're going to run into once you're in the real world and you're trying new cars and different shaped glass and all that kind of stuff. But give them a little bit of that success, make sure they achieve some of that before they leave the class so that they can continue to run with that momentum.
Well, we do a lot of hands-on so they can make mistakes. And I said, if you make a mistake, we're going to stop the class. Everybody's going to talk about this mistake, how it happened, how to prevent it. Can we fix it and save this piece of film?
Exactly. Make a learning opportunity out of each of those, right?
Absolutely.
And so obviously you are hand tailoring where you can to make sure that that service, that follow-up support is there, and that is phenomenal. That goes a very, very long ways. And we've seen that with even just Robert, our trainer, trying to be available all times a day to support, install questions over the weekend and after hours and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
For kind of just a recap, generally how many days, is it during the week or during the weekends that you're hosting your classes?
I try to push my class for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Cool. 3 days, end of the week, partial weekend. Cool. Very cool, guys. Well, Bernice, it has been a privilege and a pleasure talking to you today. I want to thank you again for carving out 30 minutes out of your busy afternoon. If I'm sure we started some other questions for folks. If you guys have any of those questions, please feel free to reach out to us or to Bernice directly. I'll make sure her contact is in those descriptions as well.
Thank you, Michael.
And if you have any questions or want to learn more about STEK's Tint or train with Bernice, her contact will be below, and you can reach out to us anytime as well. Thank you. We'll catch you on the next one.